Alright, and shalom. Welcome to Cover with Jeremy Pyers.
Mm-hmm.
With my sidekick.
Callan Packers.
Alright,
That's
so today we're going to be doing part 13 of the
Yep,
Book of Enoch.
and this is a brand new
Yep.
book.
No, it's the same book.
Oh, it's the same book.
But part 13,
And
the Book of Enoch. Hey, shalom, shalom, TR. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Let's see. What chapter are we starting on today? So, yeah, we'll be starting on chapter 90. Here, oops. There we go. And so we're going to be reading the Book of Enoch, or otherwise First Enoch as it's known, from the Eth Sefer, and this is chapter 90. Oh, actually, before I'll wait to the end. Actually, I kind of got a little announcement, kind of. Here, I'll just tell you guys right now. So I've just kind of been working on a new channel, and I'm going to be calling it the Sons of Yah Studios. And basically it's going to be, like biblical cosmology, the Mazzaroth, the mud floods, all that from a biblical perspective. Because there's a lot of videos about this stuff on the internet, but it's not from an actual biblical perspective per se, like 100%.
yeah.
So
And make sure you pray to Yahweh.
exactly. So I'm going to be just making a channel, and I'm going to be just airing videos of, like I said, just, biblical cosmology, the Mazzaroth, the mud floods, all that from a biblical perspective. Let's see. If I can find the picture, I'll show you here. Actually, it's not going to let me... hold on. It's going to be too much to try to show you. I've been working on an image. I wonder if it'll... Hold on just a second. Will it show it? No. Hold on. Let me see. Sorry for my delay. No, it's not going to show it. Anyways. Stay tuned for that. I'm still working on it. And I'm just going to be, editing videos together of different studies, and even doing my own studies and showing them to you. So keep an eye out. Alright, anyways, let me begin. So chapter 90. And I observed during the time that thus 37 shepherds were overlooking all who finished in their respective periods as the first. Others then received them into their hands, that they might overlook them in their respective periods, every shepherd in his own period. Afterwards I saw the vision that all the birds of heaven arrived, eagles, the aves, kites, and ravens. The eagle instructed them all, and they began to devour the sheep, to peck out their eyes, and to eat up their bodies. The sheep then cried out, for their bodies were devoured by the birds. I also cried out and groaned in my sleep against the shepherd which overlooked that flock. Excuse me. And I looked, while the sheep were eaten up by the dogs, by the eagles, and by the kites. They neither left them their body, nor their skin, nor their muscles, until their bones alone remained, until their bones fell upon the ground. and the sheep became diminished. I observed likewise during the time the 23 shepherds were overlooking, who completed in their respective period 58 periods. Then were small lambs, born of those white sheep, who began to open their eyes and to see, crying out to the sheep. The sheep, however, cried not out to them, neither did they hear what they uttered to them, but were deaf, blind, and obdurate in the greatest degrees. I saw in the vision that ravens flew down upon those lambs, that they seized one of them, and that tearing the sheep in pieces, they devoured them. I saw also the horns grow upon those lambs, and that the ravens lighted down upon their horns. I saw too that a large horn sprouted out on an animal among the sheep, and that their eyes were opened. He looked at them, and their eyes were made wide open, and he cried out to them. Then the Debella saw him, all of who ran to him. And besides this, all the eagles, the avis, the ravens, and the kites were still carrying off the sheep, flying down upon them, and devouring them. The sheep were silent, but the Debella lamented and cried out, and the ravens contended and struggled with him. They wished among them to break his horn, but they prevailed not over him. I looked on them until the shepherds, the eagles, the avis, and the kites came, who cried out to the ravens to break the horn of the Debella, to contend with him and to kill him. But he struggled with them, and cried out that help might come to him. And I perceived that the man who came had written down the names of the shepherds, and who ascended up before Yahweh of the sheep. He brought assistance, and caused everyone to see him descending to help of the Debella. I perceived likewise that Yahweh of the sheep came to them in wrath, while those who saw him fled away. All fell down in his tabernacle before his face, while all the eagles, the avis, ravens, and kites assembled, and brought with them all the sheep of the field. All came together and strove to break the horn of the Debella. And then I saw that the man who wrote the Sefer at the word of Yahweh opened the Sefer of destruction, of that destruction which the last 12 shepherds wrought, and pointed out before Yahweh of the sheep, that they destroyed more than those who preceded them. I saw also that Yahweh of the sheep came to them, and taking his hand, the scepter of his wrath, seized the earth, which became rent asunder, while all beasts and birds of the heaven fell from the sheep, and sunk into the earth, which closed over them. I saw too that a large sword was given to the sheep, who went forth against all the beasts of the field to slay them. But all the beasts and birds of heaven fled away from before their face. And I saw a throne erected in a delectable land. Upon this sat Yahweh of the sheep, who received all the sealed Sepharim, which were opened before him. Then Yahweh called the first 7 white ones, and commanded them to bring before him the first of the first stars, which preceded the stars, whose form partially resembled that of horses. The first star which fell down first, and they brought them all before him. And he spoke to the man who wrote in his presence, who was of the 7 white ones, saying, Take those 70 shepherds, to whom I delivered up the sheep, and receiving them, killed more of them than I commanded. Behold, I saw them all bound, and standing before him. First came on the trial of the stars, which, being judged and found guilty, went to the place of punishment. So it's pretty interesting. The stars, they're going to be the first ones to be judged. Just like it, and it speaks that they transgress their orders earlier in the book of Enoch, like we read. So here's when they're going to get their judgment. Pretty interesting. They thrust them into the deep, full of flaming fire and full of pillars of fire. Then the 70 shepherds were judged, and being found guilty, were thrust into the flaming abyss. At that time, likewise, I perceived that one abyss was thus opened in the midst of the earth, excuse me, which was full of fire. And to this were brought the blind sheep, which being judged and found guilty, were all thrust into that abyss of fire on the earth, and burnt. The abyss was on the right of that house. And I saw the sheep burning, and their bones consuming. I stood beholding him emerge that ancient house, while they brought out its pillars, every plant in it, and the ivory, even folding it, they brought it out and deposited it in a place on the right side of the earth. I also saw that Yahweh of the sheep produced a new house, great and loftier than the former, which he bound by the former circular spot. And look at that. Also explaining what Isaiah explains, it's circular, not a ball. And its pillars were new, and its ivory new as well, as more abundant than the former, ancient, which he had brought out. So, in case you didn't know, this is speaking of the new Jerusalem, the new heaven and earth that's going to come down. And while all the sheep were left, which were left, were in the midst of it, all the beasts of the earth and all the birds of heaven fell down and worshipped them, petitioning them and obeying them in everything. Then those 3 who were clothed in white, and who, holding me by my hand, had before caused me to ascend, while the hand of him who spoke held me, raised me up, and placed me in the midst of the sheep, before the judgment took place. The sheep were all white, with wool long and pure. Then all who had perished and had been destroyed, every beast of the field and every bird of heaven, assembled in that house. While Yahweh of the sheep rejoiced with great joy, because all were good, and had come back again to his dwelling. And I saw that they laid down the sword which had been given to the sheep, and returned it to his house, sealing it up in the presence of Yahweh. All the sheep would have been enclosed in that house, had it been capable of containing them. And the eyes of all were open, gazing on the good one. Nor was there one among them who did not behold him. I likewise perceived that the house was large, wide, and extremely full. I saw too, that a white cow was born, whose horns were great. and that all the beasts of the field and all the birds of heaven were alarmed at him, and entreated him at all times. Then I saw that the nature of all of them was changed, and that they became white cows, and that the first in their midst of them spoke, when that word was a wild ox. Upon the head of that wild ox were great and black horns, while Yahweh of the sheep rejoiced over them, and all over the crows. I lay down in the midst of them. I awoke and saw the whole. This is the vision which I saw, lying down and waking. Then I blessed Yahweh of righteousness, and gave glory to him. Afterwards I wept abundantly. Excuse me. Nor did my tears cease, so that I became incapable of enduring it. While I was looking on, they flowed on account of what I saw. For all was come and gone by every individual circumstance respecting the conduct of mankind was seen by me. In that night I remembered my former dream, and therefore wept and was troubled, because I had seen that vision. All right. Chapter 91. And now my son Methuselah, call to me all your brethren, and assemble for me all the children of your mother, for a voice calls me, and the Ruach is poured out upon me, that I may show you everything which shall happen to you forever. Then Methuselah went, called to him all his brethren, and assembled his kindred, and conversing with all his children in truth, said, Hear, my children, every word of your father, and listen in uprightness to the voice of my mouth. For I would gain your attention while I address you, my beloved. Be attached to integrity and walk in it. Approach not integrity with a double heart, nor be associated with double-minded men, but walk, my children, in righteousness, which will conduct you in good paths, and let truth be your companion. For I know that oppression will exist and prevail on earth, that on earth great punishment shall in the end take place, and that there shall be a consummation of all iniquity, which shall be cut off from its root, and every fabric shall pass away. Iniquity, however, shall again be renewed and consummated on earth. Every act of crime and every act of opposition and impiety shall be a second time embraced. Whence, therefore, iniquity, sin, blasphemy, tyranny, and every work shall increase, and transgression, impiety, and uncleanness shall also increase upon them all, shall great punishment be inflicted from heaven. The holy Yahweh shall go forth in wrath, and upon them shall great punishment from heaven be inflicted. The holy Yahweh shall go forth in wrath and with punishment, that he may execute judgment upon the earth. In those days oppression shall be cut off from its roots, and iniquity with fraud shall be eradicated, perishing from under heaven. All the idols of the nations shall be surrendered, with its inhabitants, with fire it shall be burnt. They shall be brought from every part of the earth, and be cast into a judgment of fire. They shall perish in wrath, and by a judgment overpowering them forever. Righteousness shall be raised up from slumber, and wisdom shall be raised up, and conferred upon them. Then shall the roots of iniquity be cut off, sinners perish by the sword, and blasphemers be annihilated everywhere. Those who meditate oppression and those who blaspheme by the sword shall perish. And now, my children, I will describe and point out to you the path of righteousness and the path of oppression. I will again point them out to you, that you may know what is to come. Hear now, my children, and walk in the path of righteousness, but shun that of oppression, for all who walk in the path of iniquity shall perish forever. Chapter 92. That which was written by Enoch, he wrote all this instruction of wisdom for every man of dignity and every judge of the earth, for all my children who shall dwell upon the earth, and for subsequent generations, conducting themselves uprightly and peaceably. Let not your ruach be grieved on account of the times, for the Holy and Great One has prescribed a period to all. So that's pretty amazing. Don't be grieved on account of the times. Yahweh has it all under control. He has from the beginning. Do not fear. Yahweh, your Elohim, is with you. Let the righteous man arise from slumber. Let him arise and proceed in the path of righteousness, in all its paths, and let him advance in goodness and eternal clemency. Mercy shall be showed to the righteous man. Upon him shall be conferred integrity and power forever. In goodness and in righteousness shall he exist, and shall walk in everlasting light. But sin shall perish in eternal darkness, nor be seen from that time forward forevermore. Chapter 93. After this, Enoch began to speak from a Sefer. And Enoch said, concerning the children of righteousness, concerning the elect of the world, and concerning the plant of righteousness and integrity, these things will I speak of, and will explain to you, my children. I am Enoch. In consequence, that which has been shown to me from my heavenly vision and from the voice of the watchers and the holy ones, have I acquired knowledge. And from the tablet of heaven I have acquired understanding. You see how he doesn't inscribe his knowledge and understanding to his own? Enoch then began to speak from a Sefer, and said, I have been born the 7th in the 1st week, while judgment and righteousness wait with patience. But after me, in the 2nd week, great wickedness shall arise, and fraud shall spring forth. In that week the end of the first shall take place, in which man will be saved. But when it's completed, iniquity shall grow up, and he shall execute the decree upon sinners. So again, referring to Messiah. Afterwards, in the 3rd week, during its completion, a man of the plant of righteous judgment shall be selected, and after him the plant of righteousness shall come forever. Again, Messiah. Subsequently, in the 4th week during its completion, The visions of the holy and righteous shall be seen, the order of generation after generation, and habitation shall be made for them. Then in the 5th week, during its completion, the house of glory and dominion shall be erected forever. After that, in the 6th week, all those who are in it shall be darkened. The hearts of all them shall be forgetful of wisdom, and in it shall a man arise and come forth. And during its completion, he shall burn the house of dominion with fire, and all the race of the elect root shall be dispersed. So, this is talking about the Antichrist as well. Afterwards, in the 7th week, a perverse generation shall arise. Abundant shall be its deeds, and all its deeds perverse. During its completion, the righteous shall be selected from the everlasting plant of righteousness, and to them shall be given the 7-fold doctrine of his whole creation. So pretty interesting how this is describing the exact times we live in. Afterwards, there shall be another week of the 8th of righteousness, to which shall be given a sword to execute judgment and justice upon all the oppressors. Sinners shall be delivered up into the hands of the righteous, who, during its completion, shall acquire habitations by their righteousness. And the house of the great king shall be established for celebrations forever. After this, in the 9th week, shall the judgment of righteous be revealed to the whole world. Every work of the wicked shall disappear from the whole earth. The world shall be marked for destruction, and all men shall be on the watch for the path of integrity. After this, on the 7th day of the 10th week, there shall be an everlasting judgment, which shall be executed upon the watchers, and a spacious eternal heaven shall spring forth in the midst of the angels. The former heaven shall depart and pass away, as a renewed heaven shall appear, and all the celestial powers shine with 7-fold splendor forever. Afterwards, likewise, shall there be many weeks, which shall externally exist in goodness and in righteousness. Neither shall sin be named there forever and ever. Who is there of all the children of men capable of hearing the voice of the Holy One without emotion? Who is there capable of thinking his thoughts? Who is capable of contemplating all the workmanship of heaven? Who of comprehending the deeds of heaven? He may behold its animation, but not its ruach. He may be capable of conversing, but not of ascending. He may see all the boundaries of these things and meditate upon them, but he can make nothing like them. Who of all men is able to understand the breadth and length of the earth? By whom have been seen the dimensions of all these things? Is it every man who is capable of comprehending the extent of heaven, what its elevation is, and by what it is supported? And it's interesting, these are all the things many of us have questions of today, but it says, who can even count these things or measure them? How many are the numbers of the stars? And where are all the luminaries remain at rest? And where all the luminaries remain at rest. Alright, chapter 94, and it'll be the final one for this evening. And now, let me exhort you, my children, to love righteousness and to walk in it. For the cycles of righteousness are worthy of acceptation, but the paths of iniquity shall suddenly fail and be diminished. To men of note in their generation, the paths of oppression and death are revealed, but they keep far from them and do not follow them. Now too, let me exhort you righteous, not to walk in the paths of evil and oppression, nor in the paths of death. Approach them not, that you may not perish, but covet. And choose for yourselves righteousness and a good life. Walk in the paths of peace, that you may live and be found worthy. Retain my words in your inmost thoughts, and obliterate them not from your hearts. For I know that sinners counsel men to commit crime craftily. Kind of a little rhyme there. They are not found in every place, nor does every counsel possess a little of them. Woe to those who build iniquity and oppression, and who lay the foundation of fraud, for suddenly they shall be subverted, and never obtain peace. Woe to those who build up their house with crime, for from their very foundations shall their houses be demolished, and by the sword they shall fall. Those too who acquire gold and silver shall justly and suddenly perish. Woe to you who are rich, for in your riches have you trusted. But from your riches you shall be removed, because you have not remembered El Elyon in the days of your prosperity. You have committed blasphemy and iniquity, and are destined to the days of effusion of blood, to the days of darkness, and to the day of the great judgment. This I will declare and point out to you, that he who created you will destroy you. When you fall, he will not show you mercy, but your Creator will rejoice in your destruction. Let those then who shall be righteous among you in those days detest sinners and the wicked. That last one there is pretty powerful, honestly. Really powerful. All the book of Enoch is. Exactly, TR. Life or death, Torah or sin. And it's easy. It is really easy. That's what it is. You can follow his word and live in love and righteousness and do your best to follow his ways. Because not one of us is perfect. Or you can, follow man and Satan and their ways and traditions. And sure, you might become rich on the earth now, but you're not storing up for yourself treasures in heaven. And it's going to be a sad day when that day comes. Hey, shalom, Andrea.
Don't listen to the demons.
Exactly, don't listen to the demons. But shalom, Andrea. And it's okay, no worries. But
it's
yeah.
just a fake sword.
But
It's
yeah,
a big
you know.
sword that Dada gave me.
But yeah, you know. Speaking of swords, you know, we always gotta have our armor and our shield and our sword.
To kill the demon.
and it, and it's not against flesh and blood that we fight. It's against the principalities, you know.
And victory will be.
Exactly. You gotta speak when I'm not speaking, remember?
Yeah.
But yes, always keep that armor on. Keep up your shield. Have your sword ready.
And I hope you had a good video.
Me as well. I hope you guys have learned a lot and are learning a lot and, you know, testing things for yourself to His Word.
Even
you know,
we know about Yahweh.
Yes. You know, don't let some guy on the screen tell you what to do or what to follow. Or some guy behind a keyboard. Test everything for yourself with prayers and fasting.
Let me guys tell you something real quick. Do not listen what the demons tell you.
Exactly. And please stop interrupting, Callum.
Yes, I have some things to say.
I know. So do I. Anyway. Yes, exactly, Andrea. Out of the mouth of babes.
And always remember, pray to Yahweh.
Exactly. Prayer and fasting. Testing everything to His Word. Don't follow a guy on the screen or behind a keyboard. Not even me. You know, we're all students in His words. And, you know, we're all learning. And we can all learn from each other.
And don't listen to bad people.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining me this evening.
Yep.
And be on the lookout. Be on the lookout for my new channel that I'm going to be coming out with here soon.
And the ones
I'm also going to still be doing part 2 of the Book of Jasher, testing it. There's so many things I have lined up, and it's been so busy. But patience. Things are coming.
And the people that knows about Yahweh, and they have been watching this, they will know how to go. Speed.
Yep. Anyways. Thank you guys. Have a blessed week. Have a blessed evening.
Yep.
Shalom.
And don't forget Yahweh.
And we'll see you next week. Thank you.